Very first Striped Bass Festival, 1980. As you can see, it was kind of small town flavor. First year we did it, it was more like a great big picnic, family reunion type thing. And you can see we had a mayor's stroll where it was just out viewing the flowers, picnics, parties, parade, basically, you know, a few antique cars and a few entries. Didn't have many floats, but you can see by the pictures that it was kind of small town flavor, outdoor picnics, and the local people coming together for a good time, pig pickings. And it wasn't till we moved on to the 90s that we started with catfish wrestling. There's a 40-pound flathead being hoisted out of the tank. And it kind of evolved into more of a professionally run. As you can see, the brochures got a little fancier, slick copy brochures. The entries in the parade got a little bigger and a little more professional. Back in 1980 was the first Striped Bass Festival in Clarendon County. I have to give the credit to Jerry Robertson and Margaret Robertson and a few of their good friends that basically lived in the downtown Manning area. The very start of the Striped Bass Festival was to actually celebrate the Santee Cooper Lakes and the remarkable fish, the striped bass, which was a landlocked fish created when the Santee Cooper Lake system was started back in the 1950s. The striped bass actually got landlocked when they dammed up the river, and we celebrate the famous striped bass that's brought a lot of economic tourism and travel to Clarendon County and to our Santee Cooper Lake systems. I have been affiliated with the Striped Bass Festival since 1980, its inception. The Chamber of Commerce, I was actually on the founding group of the Chamber of Commerce back in 1982 or 3, and I've been past president of the Chamber of Commerce twice. I've been on the board of directors for probably 15 years. But the Striped Bass Festival, I actually chaired the Striped Bass Festival for some 12 years. Buck Sprott and myself actually were the chairman of the Striped Bass Festival for the 80s and most of the 90s. It's surprising that the very first festival in 1980 was actually a pretty good little festival. It started on a Friday with a golf tournament, fishing tournament, and a flower show. And then Saturday had a full day Saturday with a parade, events, a skeet shoot, a bike race, a little marathon for the runners, and some demonstrations, some food vendors. And Sunday actually had a local air show at the airport a mayor's stroll to look at the azaleas and camellias and dogwoods that are in full bloom in early April, and then concluded with a Vesper service, a religious service at the City Hall at about 6 o'clock on Sunday. The first of dates that were set, April, the second week of April, was to highlight the azaleas, dogwoods, and camellias that would be in bloom at that time of year. And it always follows 2 weeks after Easter now. It's just coincidental that it did that. But we like to have it usually about the first 2 weeks of April so the flowers are in bloom. We started in the 1980s, about midway in '85, and the festival committee grew. Buck Sprott and myself started chairing the Striped Bass Festival probably 1984, and we started it with a Friday night show and dance. We did it at the old Manning High football stadium, and we would book big name shag bands, the Swinging Medallions, the Tams, the Drifters, the Catalinas, Maurice Williams and the Zodiacs. These were big time beach bands that played mostly at Myrtle Beach and the coast. And in small town Manning, we would put on a beach show and dance on a Friday night that brought 5,000 people to the old Manning High Stadium, football stadium, for a show and dance. And I had food and drink, and it was just a big time. And it was back in the day in 1985, 86, it was unheard of for a small town to host a big beach music festival like that. I think the 80s and early 90s were our golf tournament, our tennis tournament. We hosted the state archery championship here for 4 or 5 years that brought 200 shooters into town. I think our big events that were really popular were the truck pull. We would set up a truck pull arena and have 3,500 people attend the truck pull. Always well attended, was a very professional event, and it was kind of unheard of for a small town community to host a truck pull like this. It was usually your bigger towns, Columbia, Charleston, Florence, that would do these things. But we actually, for probably 10 to 15 years, hosted a very successful truck pull event. I think one of our most popular events that we hosted for probably 15 years was called catfish wrestling. We actually would have 30 and 40 pound largemouth black flathead catfish that we would catch and put in tanks, and have our local celebrities and dignitaries jump in the tank and try to actually wrestle this catfish and hold him up for people to see. And I probably got some pictures that we can get later here of some people wrestling these catfish. But it was a very big event, and we would have 2,000 and 3,000 people line up to try to get a sight to see these catfish come out the water. And that's one right there with the local mayor, Jerry Robertson, trying to hoist that 40-pound flathead catfish up out the tank. And it was a very big event, and we did it for many years, probably about 12 to 15 years we would do the catfish wrestling. Back in the early 90s, we had what we called on Saturday night, the Woody Windham Shag Show. And Woody Windham was a local celebrity in Columbia who was a DJ on WNOK radio. And we would have Woody Windham show at the Armory and would have 2,000 and 3,000 people show up Saturday night after the festival had been all day long to shag with Woody Windham. The parade has now started out where it was probably 30, 40 units that would come through Main Street in Manning Brook Street and maybe be about a 30-minute parade. It has now grown to 150 entries that takes an hour and 20 minutes to come down through Manning and make the turn. So it has grown to be quite a popular event. And like I say, it takes an hour and 20 minutes now to come through town. I think it was the people that were involved in the striped bass making it a success. It started out back in 1980 as a committee under the Clarendon County government. And in about 1989, we moved it to the Clarendon County Chamber of Commerce, where we'd have full-time people available to work on this festival year-round. And I think it's been the way we've organized it and the fact that it has been under the control of the Clarendon County Chamber of Commerce since 1989 that it's been successful. This is the 20th anniversary Striped Bass Festival, which was a pretty good milestone. A lot of people never thought that striped bass would make it 20 years, because most small towns in South Carolina, you know, they'll have the Peach Festival, it'll go for about 20 years and fade, the Chitlin Strut, and, you know, the Cotton Festival. But somehow we've stuck it out, and we're in our 32nd or 33rd year, which is pretty significant for a local festival to actually have that kind of longevity. But the Striped Bass Festival was always a good group of people that was called the Striped Bass Festival Committee. The future of the Striped Bass Festival will probably remain pretty much the same. We have events that come and go, always do a beauty pageant, of course. Maybe another Saturday night event will get put in where we could do a fireworks display and maybe bring another big name entertainer in on Saturday night. Of course, Sunday we usually do our boat poker run down at John Land Landing, where we have several thousand people that either do a poker run by boat, motorcycle, or car, have a band and festivities down at John Land Landing on Sunday afternoons usually. And of course, this was the third year that we did the Santee Cooper Bass Tournament, which will be a staple. It's been very well attended, very successful, and we will continue the bass tournament on the Striped Bass weekend. The Chamber has done a good job bringing new people in. We had our first people, 1980 was 34 years ago. Those people have done it, they're moved on. People like me have been involved in it for the duration. We've got some new people coming back to Manning, Clarendon County, that are stepping up, getting involved. So hopefully if we can get an influx of the new younger people in Manning, the striped bass can continue. Having the Chamber of Commerce anchor it and actually being in charge of it gives you that continuity and those paid employees that can keep something going. It's hard to keep something as a volunteer organization going year after year. But Striped Bass Festival will probably be here for another 10 years easy, unless something changes drastically, I believe.